All right. So we are live with our March 6th, 2023. How quickly a time goes by. Developer video call today. We're going to be sharing some of the discussion between John Nash and myself, Jay Lawrence, Reddcoin developers, and really the motive force behind what Reddcoin's doing. We're going to be talking a bit about subjects that we've already announced, spoken about, brought live, some of the Mastodon and EPUB work that we've already done, as well as just kind of braining through some of the challenges that we've got on our plate, some of the obstacles and options that we typically talk about. We thought we would expose this one to the public just in general, just to kind of give you a sense of what goes on as we're planning our way through this. And just a side sort of diversion for the moment to those who don't know what Mastodon or the Fediverse or ActivityPub is. It is, in easiest terms, it's a decentralized version of the social network that people have grown to know and love and use, like Twitter and Facebook. The idea being there's no central company running things. It's a distribution of the data and the network amongst lots of little servers, all working kind of in tandem to let that information flow, but to provide a home or a corner for specific communities, like, as an example, our redheads or anybody else into crypto that would like. We've developed our own version of Mastodon, and since it is open source, readily available, anybody can use it, modify it, and sort of be happy with what they're doing. In typical implementations, Mastodon and the ActivityPub clients actually don't use cryptocurrency. What we've done is taken that code and applied the ability to use Reddcoin to it. And that's sort of what we're talking through, some of the evolution, how we go from just a straightforward, oh, here's a tip and a hashtag, to more complex interactions, tracking that activity. And I'll let John speak to that, obviously, in depth. But that has been one of our focuses. And if you want to see it in action at the moment, you can visit red.live, redd.live. That is an up and running Mastodon instance that we've customized, as I said. Feel free to register. It's up and running as a social network, so you can follow other users, myself or John specifically, or anybody else in the Fediverse. We'll be putting out some videos in how to use some of that as we grow that a little bit. But in general, to sort of prove the case of what Reddcoin and how it can be used, and to that end, we definitely want to encourage folks to jump into the process if you're interested. All of what we're doing is up for discussion as we build features and capabilities and all of that. And it's all dependent on the talent that we have, focused primarily on John. So as work gets done, it's a function of the resources we have. If people join in, more hands, more brains, more work gets done. That, of course, is the joy of the open source world and what we're doing. So with that kind of prologue, I will introduce my partner here and brother, John Nash, our technical lead, to take you through a bit of what we've done on Mastodon, his own personal spin on what and why, and anything else he chooses to throw in. So John, over to you.
Thanks, Jay. Good morning and good evening to everybody who's tuning in. Just to mirror what you were saying, really there's a bit of a public brain dump of where we're at and what we're trying to achieve. And last time we did a little audio/video stand-up. We were on the Twitter Spaces discussing integrating into ActivityPub and particularly using Mastodon as that launch platform. And what does that bring to the users? And I think one of our focuses has always been using or utilizing peer-to-peer technology so that users aren't locked into these monolithic towers of ownership on the social media side. And while Mastodon has been around for quite some time now and it's really shown some maturity, it's been this last sort of 6 to 10 months time frame where a little bit more focus from the general public has gone that way. Mastodon was a little bit off center for a lot of people, and now people are being drawn to it for a lot of the reasons that they joined other social media platforms. One, to be able to talk openly and without too much limitation. And while that's a whole different other topic, what we're really focusing on from a cryptocurrency point of view is exploring peer-to-peer technology, and I think that's where it fits our ideology on cryptocurrency, because it keeps that ownership of coins with the users. So you're not relying on a centralized tip bot or a centralized bot to manage the funds. What we're trying to create is you, the user, control and manage your funds no matter what platform you're on. And while in the past we're focused on platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Reddit, the challenge there is you are under the control of those central entities. If they want you to utilize their platform, you're fine. You can create an account and set up your bot to an API keys to do that. Whereas at some point in time they don't like what you're doing, they can equally relinquish your access. So that creates a whole bunch of problems of returning people's funds back to them, because while we have access to or the bot developer may have access to the funds, how do you verify it and quantify returning those funds to somebody if we got locked out of those social media accounts? That's always been the dilemma. It's always been the challenge of what we're trying to do, and the approach that we're trying to take in making the process easy and at the same time making it secure. So it's almost opposite poles of of what we're what people like to do is that you make it easy, generally it's less secure. If you make it more secure, it's generally much harder. That's a big challenge, and that's why we think we see an advantage in technologies like ActivityPub. And while we're going to keep talking about Mastodon because that's where our focus has been, there's actually a whole suite of programs that are using the ActivityPub protocol to communicate and intercommunicate and generate their own social media platforms using that protocol. And we'll probably take some time, probably not so much on this particular pop-up, but on other ones to just explore, what is the possibilities with ActivityPub, what can we do, and how do we insert ourselves in there. But we'll touch a little bit on what I do like about ActivityPub is, one, it's open source. As a protocol, the ActivityPub is open source, and everybody's free to develop to it. If you want to create your own server, you just find the server type that you like, and you can spin up a server as equally as the next person. Obviously, there's resources involved in doing that, but it's become popular enough now that there are services who will spin you up, pay per serve sort of environments where they'll build the server for you, or if you have the technical know-how, you can spin up your own image on a hosted site, on a cloud-hosted site. One of the interesting things, just to touch a little bit on ActivityPub, while it's a peer-to-peer network, it's not peer-to-peer per person, but rather peer-to-peer per server. So there is still some element of control by server ops who will manage and maintain the server, and manage and maintain and moderate, people love that word, moderate the content that's on a server. But I think what sort of separates that apart from applications like Twitter is this very broad social platform where everybody's monitored by a central entity, whereas something like ActivityPub is generally people will be attracted to a server because of it might be demographics, it might be geopolitics, or it might be interests. You might be a ginger kitten lover, or you might be some pirate activist somewhere who wants to take over some political wing. But the servers are generally moderated by like-minded people, so the topics generally are moderated in that context. They also allow for, from an API point of view, your API integration is done per server. So if you spin up your own server, then you can create your communications with the ActivityPub via that server, versus applying to a central entity and having to jump through the hoops that they provide and entail. So what does it all mean? I guess it gives us a more open platform to experiment with and give to the users the ideas that we see for social media. And while we're focusing on ActivityPub, there's actually two other platforms that we're very interested in. One of them being Matrix, which is another peer-to-peer decentralized network. It's been going for some time, quite well founded, lots of interesting people and topics, and there's a lot of people now using it. Slightly different setup than what ActivityPub provides, but interesting and interesting enough for us to look at exploring that as well in the near future. And finally, and in fact, I just saw a note on this recently. Blue Sky is another platform, also using that same philosophies of peer-to-peer technology and no central point of control, and they're going into open beta where you can apply for access into their beta program to get first views at that. And while that technology is a little bit newer, at its face value, it seems something that we also want to be involved with, and certainly on the forums that we've been a part of, we can see those discussions taking place of, how do we integrate X or how do we integrate Y, and people have an interest because of the talent pool that's around that. But without further ado, we'll just scoot back to Mastodon and ActivityPub. What are we doing there? We discussed this a little bit last time. So on our server, what we've set up is a very basic BIP21 protocol where we associate users' Reddcoin address with their profile. That information is stored with their profile, and if you set those values up in the free fields that are available for a person's profile, then the interface will display an additional UI component. Basically, at the moment, it's a Bitcoin icon, but it'll allow you to press that icon, extract out the person's address, then allow you to launch an external application, your Reddcoin wallet, and then go through a transaction to tip. So what that it's very rudimentary. There's no feedback on that. So in other words, it's one way you click on the button, it's going to open up your wallet for you. You fill in a transaction and you click send, and the only information that provides is the recipient's Reddcoin address. You finish the transaction, click on send. It's going to go out to whatever wallet address they had set up, whether that be on an exchange or their own personal wallet or Electrum or whatever the case may be. There's no requirement on what that address is other than a valid Reddcoin address. In the technical side of things, if you want to dig into the technical, we're not actually touching anything to do with ActivityPub at that point. The only thing that we are looking at doing is putting in a hashtag to say something like red tip. We're also exploring whether to make that some sort of link in the text blob of ActivityPub. So in essence, not touching any of the metadata around the ActivityPub blob of data, but rather just filling in the text window so that as that message travels through the ActivityPub network, somebody can click on the hashtag and it will display a list of hashtags, but also take you to a link to bring us back to the server. What story was that, and then attract traffic back to our server. And that has a sort of a twofold effect that we see being valuable. One is you're attracting people to your server, so you're attracting people, like-minded people to the server to participate, and also acts as a medium to push ideas out and encourage other people to tip. So we know from our other platforms like Reddit and Telegram, tipping is quite popular. People like throwing coins around, but they tend to be a very insular network. Unless new people are coming in, that's great, but there's no messaging going back out to the broader field. And we see the way that ActivityPub works, that there's an opportunity to use hashtags and that sort of generation to take the message outside the server and attract people that are outside the server back to our own channel. So if you are interested in cryptocurrency, or you're interested in tipping platforms or microtransactions, that you can bring people back to the server, and people can participate and integrate integrate in with the server. Our next phase on this is, so that was, you just used the BIP21. So basically, all that is doing is creating a URI that your desktop is aware of and your browser is aware of, and there are some limitations on that as well, as we've discovered. But allows the browser to launch an external application. There are limitations. Chrome allows pretty much any URI type to communicate with the desktop, whereas Firefox is very specific about the protocols and the protocol handler. And what we found with Firefox is they allow Bitcoin and Bitcoin only when it comes to the type of transaction, along with some other, the typical mail to and text and telephone. But for the protocol handlers, very limited. Which brings us on to, how do we overcome that? What's the method to overcome that? And we're almost coming full circle on this, because originally, from Reddcoin development point of view, so the original team had developed a browser plugin that ran both on Chrome and on Firefox, was an extension, and they were parsing various sites just by scraping website data to find particular values in the HTML, and being able to plug in as an overlay into that website. So the browser extension added as an overlay onto those websites to create a button and a tipping experience. And what happened then was, in the old way, was you clicked on the link, it would then launch a in-browser wallet for people to interact with. So there's a browser extension contained a Electrum wallet, and then you could transact using the Electrum wallet. And initial proof of concepts worked fine with that, and we played around with Red ID with that as well. We're pulling some concepts together that kind of work well. But the problem, what we were experiencing, was the dynamic nature of web pages, keeping up with that technology, where the likes of Facebook or Reddit change their underlying configuration or development methods, and it was a challenge to keep up with the way that those platforms presented their HTML. So we couldn't put in our overlays as easily as we would wish to. But what was interesting there is it removed that limitation of a protocol that's protocol handler, that the web page could communicate with the extension, and then you could have your bi-directional communication there. And that's really, at the moment, where we're sitting in our development, is let's revisit what we had going with the browser extension and create that bi-directional. One of the important things about bi-directional, rather than being one-directional, is that when you say you want to tip somebody, and this is more from a what are the processes of tipping. When you tip somebody, you select them out, and you may give a message, and you click on send. The transaction will go out to the network. Or alternatively, you may not want to send all your transactions in one hit. You may want to bundle them up for save time, or the way you want to manage your funds, for example. But basically, when you click on send and you send out your transaction, they'll go out to the blockchain and get propagated around the blockchain. The person will receive their funds. But that idea of generating a transaction actually creates a link, or can create a link back to your social media channel. Now you can associate the transaction ID with a particular story, or a particular blog post, or a particular tip activity, or microtransaction activity, and you can link that back into the story. So now you have a reference between story, content, and activity. Somebody got tipped on that, and linking that back to a transaction. And while there are pluses and minuses for that type of interaction, again, it goes back to what we were saying before, or what I was saying before, being able to get the message out, attract people into this philosophy and mindset that we have, promoting good content, promoting positive attitudes towards rewarding people for their content, not just doing rain because it's nice to throw a few coins around, but if somebody puts the effort into creating a story or writing a blog piece, I guess that's really where our mindset is. It's not necessarily these very short, sending a bit of a mind thought bubble out on the network, but rather somebody who's spent the time to create a video or write an article is being able to reward, gives people a sense of reward back to that activity. So why Electrum?
Do you want to take a break for a moment, John, and just show a little bit of some of the interface?
Sure, we can do that. Let me spin down here onto my back down to the interface here, and we'll also give you a little bit of a demonstration of what we're going on. So this is a very basic sort of view of the Mastodon. I'm just trying to get a site that looks well. So one of the interesting things of Mastodon, so we see a single column here at the moment. If you haven't played around with Mastodon, basically you have a feed of information that's come in, messages that come in. They have messages that are local to your server. Actually, I had the messages covered up. I just noticed a few people are typing in there, and some names that haven't heard for a while. Hey, g'day Jimmy, I haven't seen you around for a while. Big shout out. So back on Mastodon, I was mentioning there's a sense of your peer-to-peer servers, so you can see messages from local servers, and you can also see messages from federated servers. So basically, if I click on local here, you'll see messages that transpire between people that are on the local server. You can see in here I was mentioning about embedded icons. So TechAdapt here has got a gold Bitcoin icon. Unfortunately, we haven't got a Reddcoin one there just yet. That's work in progress. But basically, he has set up a address in his profile that if I was to click on the button, it's going to open up a modal window to allow you to go off and tip him with a dialog window. This is, in fact, I'm not even sure what's going to happen here. If I click on that, I'm on a multi-window device here, so there's a bit going on. No, it's not going to happen for me. And again, this is one of the challenges of doing it as a URI style or BIP21 style link, is that the interactions are a little bit unpredictable, and that's what we want to move past. We want to have a much more reliable experience, so that if you're using the interface as a web page, or web page on your desktop, or you might be using it as a PWA or a website on your mobile, that you're actually able to launch the installed applications on your device, whether it be your desktop machine or on your mobile machine. So that's what we're currently working on at the moment, is to incorporate that functionality. If somebody doesn't have their ID set up, and I'm not sure if we actually have anybody in there like that, basically we color coded the icons. Oh, there's one. Look at that. There's somebody. So this person has a gold icon. Basically means that they have a Reddcoin address available to them. When they don't have that set up, so they're on our server, so we provide the functionality, but they still need to set up their ID on their profile or their Reddcoin address on their profile so that they can proceed. I think we provide a little modal to invite that particular person to use Reddcoin. So trying to make the interface, as intuitive as possible, as Tech mentioned or Jay mentioned previously. We've taken the Mastodon, it's open source. We've taken the Mastodon interface and added our own, Reddcoinified it. And one of the reasons for doing that, why didn't we go back to Mastodon to incorporate Red? There's actually two reasons. One, Mastodon have always had pushback on cryptocurrencies. They've shied away from doing the integration. There's been many requests to do that. What we see is an opportunity to take their interface, not modify the underlying protocol, so leaving ActivityPub alone so that the messaging remains compliant throughout the ActivityPub network, and just being able to play enough data that a ActivityPub message can be moved around the network to any server that supports Reddcoin, in our case Reddcoin cryptocurrency. So for example, somebody wanted to Reddcoinify PeerTube, which is their video streaming platform. It would just require them to make the changes to PeerTube's open source interface and be able to extract out that same information, and be able to do the same activity. So effectively, Mastodon is written in a couple of different technologies. The web interface is React. We're developing our interface around React. We want to try and make it as pluggable as possible, so that if a developer comes along and wants to help out, that they can pick up the work that we've done so far and apply that to another site that might be using React as their interface. There's a few other ideas floating around.
If I could interrupt for a second.
Sure, I love interruptions.
Make the plea out to the audience and anybody with a friend who's a developer. That's your cue to jump in here and go, hey, I want to help. We really do, encourage folks to help us explore what's possible, whether it's React or, JavaScript or TypeScript or Go or whatever the language is you think you might bring to it, or the level of experience. This really is a great project to sort of get some exposure to very core, basic blockchain and fundamental concepts of crypto. And in exchange, we can get some value out of folks who are willing to put the effort in to help us. So absolutely, we've always been, encouraging of folks to step up, try to put this into every call we do. We are about the community. And if you're one of the people out there that's hearing this and going, well, I know React or I know TypeScript, contact us. Email info@redcoin.com or Telegram. Visit our channels if you're not there already. We really do want to grow the team as much as possible, and there is a ton of work to do.
And it's fun. I think one of the things that Mastodon is kind of new. It's a new technology in the fact that it's using this peer-to-peer, but so much of it is still traditional. So it's just being applying old stuff to new stuff, and reimagining what things are possible. So it excites me to actually see that finally in the internet world, we're not being governed by central entities. We're making much smaller units of, I won't say, I'll use the word control, but much smaller units where people can participate with like-minded individuals and not be necessarily controlled by the central authority. I'll try and remain politically inert. Well, I think that's I think what people are seeing in the broader community, as they're seeing what's happening with Facebook and see what's happening with Twitter and seeing how those entities are being controlled, how's their data being used. People's user data is much more point of topic at the moment because sites have been hacked and people's user data have been used against them or spammed against. When it's a central site, that's a whole lot more people get affected than a smaller site. So yes, there are skills required to set these servers up to run, but the people who are enabling these servers also making it easier to set up and manage and maintain security around those. But I think anybody who uses social media shouldn't assume that their information is entirely secure. You're putting your you're putting your information out there into a public domain, whether you use a password or not. I think people have seen enough internet espionage, social sites being hacked into and user databases stolen, that people should be wary about what information they put out there, and that level of trustfulness should be, people should manage that. I think today's day and age, Jay, you probably agree with me. You've been in security as much as I have been. People have been far too trusting to big organisations for far too long, even when it comes to healthcare or social security numbers, or whatever information is important to people out there. Whether it's a government department or a social department, social network department, or whatever. When you put your information out there and you start putting out things that identify you, like driver's licenses and passport numbers, and it's just shuddering to see people affected by that in recent weeks and months. It kind of frightens me, and that's why even in Mastodon, what we're trying to do here is our touch is very light. We're not trying to change Mastodon anymore, and they've been quite security prevalent in what they've done. Is from an integration point of view, all we're looking for is a Reddcoin address. There's not even an ID between, or a match up between this person's ID and their email address and Reddcoin address. We're really trying to keep the two systems apart with enough integration that we can actually enable the transaction. So maintaining people's privacy as much as possible, still allowing or having as seamless experience as possible, while maintaining people's integrity and financial integrity. Because Reddcoin, while may not be necessarily worth a huge number of dollars at the moment, who knows, in 12 months' time, maybe a different story. If what we do becomes popular, as we've seen in the past, some of these technologies can turn around on a dime sometimes, and you go from zero to hero in weeks and months, as opposed to a long time. So, while we're, I use these words like experimentation and proof of concepts, while we're doing all that sort of stuff, it doesn't take much that you capture the imagination of a group of people, and suddenly you've gone from cruising along, happily experimenting, into suddenly we're in a racing car trying to make stuff fly in the sky, and that's what excites me. That's what keeps me going on this project for as long as we have been. It's you throw enough ideas around and you bring them together, and finally you have the right mix. And to use and I love using analogies, Jay. It's a bit like making a cake. Sometimes you can have all the ingredients on the bench top, and you got to get the right combination of ingredients to get the cake. Otherwise, you're going to have flops and whatnots along the way. So,
eating the ingredients of a cake is not nearly as much fun as eating the cake,
unless you're licking the beater.
No, I think a lot of what you just said. I mean, it's stuff that we've talked about a lot. And one of the important things I would just underline for folks who are listening, the aspect of what we're doing that to me is very important, and it's something we've tried to maintain, is control over the funds in your wallet belongs to you, not to our developer team, not to some random website, not to Twitter, not to Facebook, not to anybody but yourself, so
Absolutely.
that you can control your coins. And that's if it's not your key, it's not your coins kind of mentality. That's what Reddcoin and these systems that we're building are far different from sort of Twitter's built-in crypto wallet for reasons like that you can be deplatformed from Twitter or kicked off of Facebook, and all of a sudden, since you don't have the keys to those wallets, you don't have access to those funds. If you've been running your life or your business or your brand on those channels, that's a huge problem. So we're trying to provide options. We're trying to provide sort of use case proof that you don't need to do it that way and trust other companies that have historically just abused everybody's trust with your funds and with your control. I think that's probably one of the most important pieces of what we're doing, and I think why we're putting the time into it. I also just wanted to mention, because and you mentioned in passing, we've got Jimmy in the comments here on YouTube, sharing his genius and insights and suggestions. We're interacting with him a little bit, but I just wanted to point out Jimmy's a member of the team from, God, like 2018, I think 2017, something like that.
Probably even. I feel like it's earlier.
Yeah, long time, and just popped up because we did this dev thing. I think some of his suggestions, again, his comment in the chat there is, he's not a tech guy, but frankly, a lot of these ideas don't come from a tech place. They come from a problem place. How can we make it do X, Y, and Z? Not how do we code that? That's the harder work too. But brainstorming some of this, coming up with ideas. What if we could make it do this? And one thing, John, I think definitely bears mention if we've got a bit of time to speak to it, is that BIP85 aspect of how we can apply some of the newer and fancier technologies around blockchain to kind of tie some of these disparate parts together in ways that there just aren't systems out there that will do that. So I did, Jimmy said in the chat, 2017, 2018, that matches up with my memory. Hope things are great for you. Some of your ideas as far as bridging to other chains and things like that, honestly, if we had the resources and the talent and agreement that stuff like that makes sense, that's how this project should drive. And if the community feels something like that was indicated, I'd hope we'd get some comments and support on doing things like that. But obviously a lot of possibilities in what we're doing there, and the ways to bridge to other chains. I like the fact that you said keeping our own chain is definitely a plus. I think that's a huge factor in our future success, and we'll speak to that in future dev stuff. But I'll turn it back to you, John, if you want to speak about BIP85 or anything else.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of things I want to touch on there, because it really goes back to BIP32, which is the HD wallets, and a whole bunch of stuff sort of flows on from that. So from a HD wallet, just in simple terms, you're generating addresses from a master key, which we've integrated that now into our core wallet. Many other wallets are using that. Core wallets are using that approach. We integrated BIP39 into our core wallet, which is basically generating your master key from a seed phrase. So we have number of different methods there, but basically taking 12, 15, 18, 24 keywords and generating your master phrase from that. Master key from that. So now you have your wallet generation. You can use a seed phrase for backup and restoration as opposed to saving a private key. We also introduced BIP44 into our core wallet. So while in the core wallet it doesn't make entire sense for a lot of people, I thought it was pertinent enough to put in place because we have other wallets out in the wild. Companies like Coinomi, a lot of the web-based or mobile wallets or multi-coin wallets use BIP44, which is your coin purpose. So for Reddcoin, we're number 4 on that list, and basically that allows you to restore or generate a wallet on a external wallet or externally generated wallet like Coinomi, and incorporate that into our core wallet. But also, as we look at what we're doing with Mastodon and it's this social media tipping, we're also taking those core ideas. So using HD wallet, so BIP32, using BIP39 to use seed phrases for backup and restoring, BIP44 coin purpose. So we have now used those wallets across different platforms as wallet platforms, and then you're touching about different chains. So I just did want to speak a little bit about BIP44 in that case. So basically, what BIP44 allows you to do, if you it needs to be coded up, obviously, but the potential exists there. You can take a BIP44 compliant wallet and add another coin purpose. So you may have Reddcoin as one flavor of cryptocurrency, but you have other coins that you want to have involved. So if you want to grow the network, so to speak, suppose you have a circle of crypto friends that want to use different currencies, there is a potential then to create a single wallet using a seed phrase and then generating different wallet branches using coin purpose BIP44 to generate your Reddcoin addresses and then generate other networks on top of that. And I know internally we've discussed that, Jay, within our crypto friends circles. I don't want to say too much other than that's an option that we're keeping in the back of our mind to explore. Is while we're all about Red, there are other programs and projects out there that we have an affinity to and share like-mindedness to. So we're not operating in a single bubble here, but rather with our broader community and circle of friends, we toss ideas around with other networks to encourage ideas and encourage some exchange. So I see an advantage of having that protocol enabled, so that as a user, if I'm a user who wants to tip somebody in a different coin type, because my friend likes this coin but he doesn't like that coin, you provide that opportunity. And I think while Red should be the social coin of currency of central to everybody's thoughts, the reality is not everybody likes one type of currency over another one. So a little bit of flexibility, but that also adds on to you mentioned BIP85 is another interesting protocol that we see as being useful in this social media and tipping environment, where instead of using or exposing your master key to a wallet, so again, if you're getting down to the finer points of trust here and being able to control who has access to what, or determine who has control to what funds, is by using BIP85 you can create a new seed phrase based off your original. So think about, it's a little bit like growing a tree, so your HD wallet, and taking a branch off that tree and making it separate to the rest of the network. So you can take a branch and generate a new master key, new seed phrase that will transact on a social network, for example, or multiple social networks, knowing that you have a master key, if you like, that controls all that. So you expose one level, the branch, to the social media network, while your master key might be your core wallet master key that has visibility to each of your social channels, for example. I think it would probably make more sense, if we did some sort of product demonstration at some point. That's something that's really, as we're exploring things like Mastodon and Matrix, and their client is called Element, while we're exploring those networks, it kind of makes sense as, instead of creating a wallet for this site and a wallet for that site, is that you can create a central wallet, your own wallet, your core wallet, for example, and create a BIP85 wallet, which is attached, but you set that up for, that's my Mastodon wallet, that's my PeerTube wallet, that's my Matrix wallet, that's my Blue Sky wallet. So they're all separate as far as the public internet domain is concerned, but the master key is still controlled by the user, in a more secure environment. If they happen to lose their keys, if they forget their keys on that social network, or they want to generate a new branch, they have that capability, knowing that the BIP85 will allow them to regenerate all those layers to their wallet, which, as you sit there and think about the possibilities, there's a lot of effort that goes into making that and making it a usable interface, because you've now got a much bigger environment to maintain. but it does create a environment where users can control. I think that's going to be something as we look to the future in social media networks, controlling where your funds are and who's has exposure to that, not just you, the owner of the private keys, but also exposure to people who are sending to particular addresses. And there's always people out there who are interested to see what addresses are getting what funds and where's those funds going to, and is there any whales and all those sort of things. It's going to create the possibility for users to manage or create new ones because they want to maintain some level of privacy, or maybe something was compromised or website was compromised. They want to ditch that branch altogether and start up a new branch where they're not, their exposure is being reduced. So that's kind of exciting to play around with that. And as we move forward with so where we're at the moment, basically what we're doing at the moment is rewriting our old JavaScript Electrum wallet. There's a fair bit to do there because, dare I say, it's very long in the tooth. Technology has moved along a little bit in that time. We're still using Bitcore. I think those guys have done a really great job for their products. So we're bringing Reddcoin up to date with Bitcore. Fair amount of work involved in doing that. That actually exposes some possibilities also because they have their own blockchain client that could be used. So doing away with Electrum altogether and going native. So a native wallet, that would be kind of interesting. That exposes a whole bunch of other things. I don't want to say potential staking, but I'll say it because put a tease out there. But these are the type of things that there are potential for people to explore. It's part of this world, this community that we're in is about experimentation. What would, the question mark that I put out there to myself at times is, what would enabling staking in JavaScript mean for a client or web browser? Is that going to be a big resource suck? What happens if I'm doing that on a mobile? Many people say I want to stake on mobile. What does that mean? Do I want the CPU on my mobile running hot? Does doing it off chain, on chain? There's a whole bunch of questions, and experimentation is really a part of that solution. Is determining what is really functional, what's viable, what's great to think about that I want but not actually practical. So using Bitcore as a base where we've forked the code off already and started making that interchange, moving our old, I think it was even pre-version 8 Bitcore up to much more modern times, so 2014 to now. There's a bit to cover off there. And also adopting our the Electrum client into that environment, which at the moment I'm sort of writing in parallel as I make changes on one. I'm introducing those changes into the other, and then also writing an interface around that. So I mentioned Mastodon is written in React. One of the things that we need to look at is, because I'm no graphic designer, I've thrown my graphic design, UI UX experience in the ring before, and people attack me. So I slink back underneath my rock of I'll just remain technical and provide here's a proof of concept. You go make it pretty.
Yep. So if you've got some graphic skills out there and you want to help us progress past stick figures and scary informative bar charts, no, it really does take a lot of different talents to tie all this stuff together. So if you do have an interest in joining in and you see where things could be improved, even looking at Mastodon, we can customize the theme. We can make it a little bit more of a Reddcoin home on the network. Right now, it's a bit of a sandbox, really, for the technology itself and the tipping aspect of it. But certainly, that interactivity and it being a bit of a social network unto itself, we can leverage that a bit. I would definitely say, there are aspects of things that we've spoken about just in passing that we are working pretty hard to make into reality. And again, encouraging anybody that feels like they want to be a part of that to reach out and be a part of it. There's nothing more to it than that.
Absolutely.
And I think other than that, we should have a written dev update out. Again, I'll promise as quickly as we can. But other than that, things are percolating along happily, and it's good to see even oldsters like Jimmy and I saw Nikki pop into the chat there for a moment. You know, once a redhead, always a redhead. So for those listening, if you have any questions or want to follow up, our channels are available. Feel free to email or contact us on Telegram, the various chats there. If not, again, I guess just keep on staking and doing your redhead things and watch these spaces for a bit more information about what we're working on.
Yeah.
John, any closing words?
I was just going to say, Jay, is you know, we keep promising ourselves, you know, but one of the things we would like to try and do is try and make this a little bit more regular segment to get out there and do a bit more show and tell, and you know, put ourselves out there and get the message out there that, you know, we aren't idle, you know, just because I guess I'm probably more guilty than anybody, but staying behind the scenes, but you know, put our faces out there a little bit more and talk through what are we working on today, and you know, doing a little bit of show and tell. As you mentioned, Red.live is it is live. It is a running Mastodon site. It is connected into the Mastodon and Activity Pub site, and it's our staging grounds, I guess, for those changes as we're experimenting and coming up with ideas, putting them out there to the network and for people to explore. So, you know, that's a whole part of this process is not operating in a vacuum, but trying to get out, you know, not just get our message out there, but you know, get our ideas and our work out there as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for taking the time to listen to what we've got to say. We've got some cool features coming both on the Mastodon side, and we will at some point make some comments about what we're doing on the other things that we've said, Red Mobile and things like that tie into some of the more name-centric work that we've discussed over the years. But again, a lot of this is very work intensive. Even the little changes just take far too much work to accomplish. If there was a way to use AI to get some of that done, well, I'm sure that'll come shortly enough. Anyway, there is a lot to be done and still maintain the network and keep things up and running. And obviously we're doing our best to do all of that and interact with the various parties that we need to as a cryptocurrency project. And honestly, this year has been going very interestingly. Looking forward to some developments in the near future with some potential partners. And I guess we'll save all that for the next update so we have something to speak about. So John, thanks for your
thanks everybody. Thanks for listening.
Vision, and we'll catch you guys on the next event.
That's it. Thanks everybody. Over and out.